Welcome to winning-stl, where we have conversations about how St. Louis can best compete and win in the battle for talent, jobs, growth, and equity. Winning-stl is presented by Purina, who creates richer lives for pets and the people who love them, and has proudly called St. Louis home since 1894. Joining me today is Brandon Williams, President and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater St. Louis. Brandon, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you today.
Appreciate it.
So let's give viewers a little bit of a background. You are an elite local athlete that did more later, but tell us your story.
Yeah, no, born and raised in North City, North County, went to Hazelwood East High School, went to the University of Wisconsin. I'm actually a club kid, so being CEO of the Boys and Girls Club.
So you were involved with it as a kid?
I was involved as a kid, started off in the summer camps in the sweltering heat of St. Louis, running around the parks and just hanging out with the counselors and things of that nature, and really just getting integrated in what it means to be a kid and grow up in St. Louis. Was able to matriculate into the University of Wisconsin on a football scholarship. I really look at myself as kind of an overachiever, right? I was one of the kids who was never the biggest, never the fastest, never the strongest, but I worked extremely hard, had great relationships, was very respectable to my coaches and the staff, and so just was able to get a lot of opportunities. And when I got those opportunities, I maximized a lot of them, and then had the opportunity to get drafted in the third round. I was the 84th pick.
And you said that was the 49ers, right?
That was the San Francisco 49ers, a team that I grew up watching. And so it was amazing that I got a chance to go out to the Bay, which is a beautiful place, and play football and get my feet wet in the NFL. The real business of the NFL is brutal.
Only imagine.
Yeah. No, and then when you go to the NFL, all of the potential, that doesn't matter anymore. It's time to make that potential real, right? So imagine me going into the NFL where I'm definitely not the biggest, fastest, or strongest, and it's men of men. And so the challenge of getting my body ready to deal with that and just being prepared professionally at the age of 21 to be able to deal with real life stuff, it can be very challenging. And so, played in the NFL for about 4 years. A year and a half into my time in the NFL, picked up in free agency over St. Louis Rams, came here. It was kind of calming to be here in St. Louis. And St. Louis fans are some of the best fans in the world.
No doubt.
They support you. They make sure you feel welcomed and happy. If you're with them, if you're not with them, then
not so much.
Not so much, right?
It's kind of tough.
So then I went to Pittsburgh, and my last kind of cup of coffee, as I say, I was in camp with Pittsburgh, ended up not making the team that last year, and then ended up retiring in 2010 and went into broadcasting.
So we were talking off camera, the discipline it takes to do what you do and what your peers in college and certainly the NFL did. Talent is a big part of it, of course, but it's generally not enough, right? It's got to have that drive. Tell me how that's prepared you for this next part of your life as you've become an executive. Has it helped you?
Yeah, I think it has helped me because it's been the foundation and the building blocks to get me to this point, because you have to be consistently committed to the effort. Right. So that you can create confidence for yourself. You cannot be successful without the confidence, right? And I believe confidence is a consistent commitment to the preparation. And so always doing that, playing the game of football from Little League all the way through to the NFL, it allowed me to go into different job opportunities. Even before I get the job, I am just enamored with the process of researching and understanding what is this role, what is this company, how do I fit in? And it took me a few years after retiring to really figure out my lane, figure out my space, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
I always talk about, imagine you being a surgeon for 20 years and then your hands don't work anymore. What are you gonna do, right? You have to literally figure out life over again. And I just did so many different things, again, searching for myself, trying to figure out who is Brandon Williams post NFL. And then kind of pivoted in 2015, moved back to Wisconsin to finish my undergrad degree. I left school early, left with about 20 credits left, right? And then in 2019, came back to St. Louis, went to Lindenwood, got my MBA, and really started to lean into entrepreneurship, leadership development, studying businesses, connecting with my network and peers. I was really heavy in venture capital as well.
Well, you should take some, some credit for the wild success of the Battlehawks because I've seen you present when you worked for them, and you were very compelling about it. Obviously, St. Louis fans responded in mass.
In mass.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you have this varied career. You've done lots of things.
Yes.
I think what I'm hearing is football gave you the confidence and the discipline, the drive to do this.
Yes.
So now you find yourself, you've taken over the Boys and Girls Club from a very well-known institutional figure in Flint Fowler, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you're following this kind of legend in the community. So tell us about the role you're in now, and let's talk about what the Boys and Girls Club does, who it serves. I suspect people have an idea, but they might not really understand it.
Yeah, so Flint Fowler is an amazing leader still in his community. 28 years at one organization.
That's incredible.
Leading them, pioneering in the space, growing it, scaling it to what it is today. Our whole mission is to create greater futures for the young people that walk through our doors and give them these opportunities, whether it's scholarships, whether it's exposure, whether it's career exploration, workforce development, sports. These are all things that are important and impactful to this region because it is building the next generation of leaders.
So in the title, obviously, we know you're serving kids, but tell us more about what kids are you serving, and how do they connect with the program, and how do you know it's working? How do you measure that?
Our opportunities and resources really span from the kid in North City all the way to the kid in West County, South County. It doesn't really matter as long as you have an appetite to be an intern, to swim, to play sports, to have some type of workforce development opportunity. We have kids here recently who have gotten $40,000 scholarships through our Best Buy Teen Center program, where they have the opportunity to create podcasts, produce music, 3D printing, be a DJ. And so there's so many different opportunities. These clubs actually can serve a purpose to any community, right? And any young person, no matter what pathway or what journey that they want to kind of step into, because my whole thing is about exposing everyone to what we do, because people know who we are. But they don't necessarily know what we do. They don't know we have 18 programs. They don't know we have St. Louis Internship Program, which is one of the preeminent internship programs for youth 13 to 18 or 12 to 18, 125 plus kids every single summer doing internships at the top 40 companies in the St. Louis region, right? These are programs that's been going on for years that a lot of people may or may not kind of connect the dots with, wow, that's a Boys and Girls Club program.
Sure.
Now, I think one of the things that we try to focus on is underserved areas. Right? Not necessarily a challenged youth, but what areas are creating these environments that youth are in, because your mind goes to what you see around you. And if you're not exposed to opportunities in different environments outside of where you live at, you'll think this is the only option for you. Figuring out what is the solution to expose them to the resources so that they see, oh, this is an alternative to me going left. Let me go right, because I seen at the Boys and Girls Club, I seen at the Teen Center or at Matthew Dickey's Herbert Hoover, I seen some of my friends going there after school and they're doing different things. They're having fun. They're being exposed to
learning things. They're having
sports. They're having different experiences from me. And I think it's important to incentivize youth. They need to see, whether it's money, whether it's a trip, whether it's a job, whether it's just having access to other people that they would never get to talk to on a consistent basis. That is important to incentivize those types of activities and behaviors. Because look, when I was at the Boys and Girls, when I was at Matthew Dickey, the St. Louis Rams came in 93, 94, right? I was one of the kids who was on the practice field when the St. Louis Rams were practicing on that field. Now, when I was 11 years old, I wasn't thinking about going to the NFL.
Right.
But there was something that was infused in me when I seen professional athletes on the field next to me,
Yeah,
walking around.
That would leave an impression, I'm sure.
Walking up to me and saying, hey, how are you doing? Man, I love that you play running back. I want to play running back. Those types of interactions, it's not a short-term thing. It was a long-term seed that was planted that when the trigger in my mind was like, oh, I want to go to the NFL. It wasn't something that was crazy to me because I had exposure and experience around those type of guys.
Right. I think it's easy sometimes for people to be cynical, it doesn't work. Why are we pouring money into this? Why? And then I think when you see some of the individual success stories, not many people I know that wouldn't be touched and impacted by that and say, oh, obviously this is meaningful and important, should be funded, should be donated to, should be supported.
Well, Greater St. Louis did a whole report called the 2030 Jobs Plan.
That's right.
And the economic engine of that report is creating economic stability for youth. And I believe that the Boys and Girls Club has its finger on the pulse of all of those young people that plan was actually written for. We serve over 15,000 youth in this city, in this region. So, one of the things that I asked as I was interviewing for this job, I asked my peers in this region, I said, why should I want this job? Why do you think I should take this job? And they said, it's the most important and impactful job for our youth in this region, and you need to go after it. And that really took me over the top, just to know that I could help sustain that and help create
So, maybe it was a good opportunity for you, but you could do a lot of things in the private sector.
Absolutely.
The connection to helping St. Louis's kids
Number
be in a better shot, hard to argue against that.
Hard to argue with that.
So, well, let me ask you this, changing gears slightly. So you're born and raised here. So you've seen a lot, good and bad. Let's start with, what do you think St. Louis is doing well that maybe we ought to spend more time on, focus on it, do more of it?
Well, I think we do a few things well. I think number one, we have done a good job of building up attractions. Being a destination is very important.
Yeah.
And then we have institutions in terms of universities, right? We have universities that are world-renowned. We have world-renowned research and business universities. And so we are attracting people from outside of this region to see those institutions.
Yes.
And so we have Fortune 500 companies, right? And so I think those are some of the things that we do very well.
So what stands out, because nothing's perfect and we know we've got things to work on.
Yeah.
What would you like to see business leaders, political leaders, make you king for a day? What would you want to see St. Louis do better at? What holds us back?
I think one of the biggest things that people outside of our region who come and live, work, and stay here for a while, they always talk about some of the lack of collaboration.
Okay, interesting.
Across industries, across cultural lines. I think we still kind of struggle with just sitting down at the table and saying, how can we as one organization partner with this organization and make the whole region better? Even city, county,
So Brandon, you've obviously in your sporting career and probably in your business career have traveled a lot. Are there any cities that are relatively comparable, maybe in size or geography, that you say, I like what they're doing there, or I like this specific thing, we should do that here?
Look, I mean, we study towns like Nashville, Indianapolis. We study them to see kind of how their city epicenter is kind of working. And I don't think we're far off from what they're actually doing. I just think we need to come and just be a little bit more collaborative. Now, maybe it's city-county merger and people are on both sides of that fence, but that may be kind of a key thread to say, look, we really need to get this region on one accord. And maybe we need to come together and figure that out as an entire region, not just one politician here and one politician here. And so I don't know what that looks like. I'm not professing that I have the solution.
We obviously, if this was an easier problem to solve, it would have been solved. But I think, most business leaders that I talk to, at least privately, think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Obviously, how that
it
works
gets
and,
there.
and coming over some of the political hurdles of it is obviously a real challenge. Okay, I would be remiss not to have such a well-regarded athlete in the chair without asking, you've got a lot. You obviously made it to the NFL. You've had a lot of successful moments in football. What's the one that stands out to you that said, "Oh my God"? It could be high school, it could be college, it could be the pros.
Wow.
What is it?
My year here in St. Louis, I was on the team with Orlando Pace, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Steven Jackson,
Wow.
Mark Bulger. I had the opportunity to sit next to guys in the locker room that I watched playing in Little League and high school, and they were my teammates.
You know, your
and
teammates.
and my friends.
Yeah, wow.
I can call them and text them whenever. So the moments, it was not a moment on the field. It was more so the moments where you're interacting with some of the greats of the game and just getting to be there.
I'm going to say, like, as we wrap up, I loved what you said about the things that you have to achieve where you achieved athletically and now in the business world is you needed confidence and hard work. I think there's a connection there to what we as a region need.
Right.
I think we largely have the hard work. I think there's lots of hard-working people. Maybe we lack a little of the confidence, and maybe there's a lesson there to take.
Well, I always say that people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Reality is the greatest organizations and civilizations, they do it over a long period of time.
Well, some of the challenges that any city has, including a region has, including St. Louis, they didn't happen quickly. You can't solve them quickly. But I like that idea of a little bit of foresight to look ahead and say, this is what could be.
This is where we're going. Now, how do we get there?
Well, look, as I love the fact that I love the fact that you are leading the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, important work for everyone. And I want to thank you for coming today in this beautiful setting. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Appreciate it.